am I? I am zero to the big O. And what does that mean? It means I spent most of my life chasing that orgasm. It means I spent most of my life, for the first 33 years, not having an orgasm or really understanding what pleasure was. And it wasn't until I chose to stop having X and I chose to be by myself that I started to open up parts of myself that was orgasmic. And no, I don't mean by just self pleasure, but I also mean in terms of everyday life when you're working, when you're having time with your friends, when you're alone watching a movie. Like life itself is orgasmic. And that's what I mean by orgasm. When I wake up in the mornings now and I step into my heart space and I close my eyes and I breathe, my heart feels orgasmic. And this is such a transition to how I felt 4 years ago when I first started this journey. I was depressed, I had anxiety, I was drinking a lot of alcohol, taking cocaine, I was cutting my wrist, I was making myself sick. So all of these things were connected to me blocking down my emotions, blocking down my nervous system. And the root cause of all of these things was sexual abuse, physical abuse, and mental abuse. And what I found is that my nervous system shut my body down. So I wasn't even able to feel pleasure or pain. And I was in a place of nothingness and emptiness. So through not having X for 3 years, I was able to understand myself more, to understand what had happened to me, to understand how can I move forward in my life, how can I come back to the beginning and to sit with those emotions that I blocked down when I was in that experience, in that timeline. And believe it or not, what I discovered through self discovery was that our mind and our heart and our womb has three different consciousness. So it means it had three different personalities. I found that all three of them had different needs, wants, and desires. So when I started to actually sit still with myself, I chose to sit in silence. I started to discover that there are other parts of me that wanted to be seen and heard. And in the past, I used to shut them down because it was too painful. It was so painful to go into those moments of my life, to go back into those experiences, because it brought so much shame. I had fear, I had so much anger, resentment towards what happened to me. But believe it or not, it's actually made me more stronger. It's actually made me realize how, how like through our pain, our suffering, how orgasmic life can be. And I will share with you now the first time I had an orgasm was in Egypt in a temple called the Assyrian, and you have to go down underground. And I just stood there in silence, and all of a sudden, my heart popped open. I had a full body orgasm from the opening of my heart because my energies were so imbalanced being in that temple. I did nothing, and it completely blew my mind. I was like, what? Like, seriously, like, how is that possible? All I have ever known is that you can have an orgasm through touching your genitals or being in an intimate connection with somebody else. But that is complete and utter bullshit. And for me, this was such an eye opener. And I was like, whoa. So for all of my life, not being able to like have an orgasm or to ejaculate with a man, all by through self pleasure. And that's what I was chasing. I was always chasing that highest climax of peak of pleasure. But then I had to say to myself, stop chasing it. Stop. It's like the more I chase, the more it's going to be further away. The more I want it, the more I desire it, the more I need it, the more it's not going to happen. So it really took time for myself to realize this, that actually taking away the sexual aspect and pushing it aside and actually being with myself, with my inner self, within my heart, my emotional body, and feeling those emotions that I used to block out by all the things that I used to do, removing mask after mask after mask, layer after layer after layer, and going down to that root cause of all my pain and suffering and facing it head on, I started to really start to open up my heart. I started to feel more alive. I started to feel emotions that I haven't felt for a very long time. My life itself become more vibrant. I felt more excited to get out of bed. I felt more happy going into work. And I felt more like joy being with my children. So I really believe that we are put in places that makes us feel uncomfortable. But it's within the uncomfortability that we choose ourselves, and we choose to be in freedom and liberation when it comes to our emotions. And that's just by us being present with ourselves, by breathing, by listening to ourselves, by listening to our body. And that's what I've done. And that was a big part of my journey. And I'm very grateful to the men that have come in out of my life, because they've actually helped me become my mirror reflections. They're able to see parts of myself within them that I haven't seen before, and to show me parts of myself that was lost. And now that I'm becoming more full within myself, I'm now becoming more connected to my womb, to my heart, and to my mind. Yes, I still make mistakes, or if even mistakes is even possible, because I feel like every mistake I make in my life is another step towards finding myself. And yes, I fall over and I trip and I have to get back up again. But every time I do that and I do get back up again, I'm no longer picking up a bottle of wine. I'm no longer throwing myself into bed with a man. I'm no longer snorting cocaine. I'm no longer cutting my wrist. I'm no longer making myself sick. It's like I'm actually dropping down to the floor. I'm getting myself back up again, and I'm choosing to be with myself all alone, with no one to hold me, no one to hold space for me, no one to be there for me, or no dependencies to hold me. I want to be raw as possible, and I want to be raw with myself. And that's what I've been chasing all my life. I thought that I was chasing this within a man. I thought a man could please me. I thought a man could give me pleasure. I thought a man could make me feel orgasmic, but I was completely and utterly wrong. And it's only me that can provide that for myself. And yeah, if a man comes into my life, it'd be an added bonus. And I'd be so grateful to that man for bringing extra pleasure on an orgasmic life to me. But at first, my number one step was to be alone, was to be by myself, so I could feel into my pain and I can transition that into pleasure. So from having no orgasms at all and not really even feeling pleasure when I was being intimate with a man or intimate with myself, I felt numb. That in a way I was actually doing it just to feel some sort of connection with somebody or some love, but that wasn't love. That was just me self-sabotaging myself. That was me just having quick blips of euphoria when it would be over and done within seconds. But now what I'm chasing is I'm chasing myself, and I'm chasing her down, and I'm liberating her. I'm making her into freedom, where she can express herself sexually, where she can be more sensual with herself, where she can be more open and vulnerable. And I know that all of us have this, not just women, by the way, this is men out there as well. They also have the ability to create orgasms in their life through their heart chakra, through their self. And this is going to be a lot about my learning on this program, because I believe there's a lot to share. And I believe there's a lot of people out there that are still in that state of numbness, emptiness, and loneliness. And yeah, I still feel all of those things. But I tell you now, when I do feel those things, I'm actually happy I'm in those states. And I am grateful for those states, because a life of bliss and euphoria constantly would get boring. So I'm actually finding that when I do go in places of sadness, or in places of like triggers, or places of like where I feel lonely or empty again, I actually embrace that now. I embody it. I bring it into myself. I hold myself. I lay in my bedroom in darkness and I just shut away the world and I just go within and I shut myself into this moment of like holding that person that needs to be held. And I just breathe with her. I just tell her, she's not alone, that we have each other, and that's all we need. And I feel like that's the beauty of this journey. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next video.